In my last video, I showed you how to make this bar chart with D3, with React, and I'm using NX as a framework for building it. If you work with React, you will probably be much more familiar with the second approach. Although the one that you can see here, I will upload to GitHub. Feel free to play with it. So in previous video, I showed you how to sort of create this library, how the NX as an environment can support your project. I will create another one. I would call it again bar chart with JSX. So let's just use NX generated library. And again, I will create, let's call it this way, again, StyledComponents, directory will be features. And again, I will just use JS, and yeah, let's just run it. Yeah, I have two components here. Often when you create a new library, you might need to restart your environment. And I will just comment this one out. Okay, let's just comment this one and just say JSX. I can X. I imagine this is how it's going to call it. Let's see. So we have that JSX thing here. And let's just have it here. Okay, it picks it up. So again, I'm back to simple screen with a title. Okay, let's just go to that element. If you press F12 in VS Code, you can just go straight to that component. I will again remove the color from the div. I don't care about this. Here I will use StyledComponents a bit more. I really like how StyledComponents work with SVG elements. You can wrap SVG element with the style and just use CSS to style it. Let's just bring a couple of elements from the previous project. Like, I'm sure I will use the same dimensions as previously. I will use the same, some of the same styling. So just use the dimensions constant, 100% height, 100%. It's obviously not used, that's why it's underlined. I'll use the colors again. We liked it, so it gave like different colors to different bars. Again, I'm using ref here, so I will just create ref for this wrapper. Ref equals use let's use ref from React. So before we had the SVG element. In order to use those SVG text, rectangles, groups as I used before, I need to wrap it all in SVG elements. So I will create a SVG, but I will use StyledComponents to create that. So I will just call it styled SVG and give it a type of SVG again. Don't need to do too much here. I mean, if you want to add some more styling to it, we can use it that way. Before we gave our SVG element width and height, and we measured the document to create that, so we'll do it again. I will measure the size of the wrapper element and pass it to my SVG. It's the same technique as in previous video, so I'm using useEffect. And I forgot to import D3. So I can use my D3 now. Oh, I don't have useState. Let's just bring useState here. And I've got my ref. Am I referring to correct? Yes. So I'm referring to my wrapper. So let's just say it's a wrapper ref. Okay, so we have our size. So okay, so now that I have my wrapper, I will start bringing elements. First, let's just make some data, because previously I just used like an array. I will improve my graph a little bit here by giving it an object. So like before I just had an array of just basic data. Now I'll just pass an object. Mostly when you work with D3, you will get some backend where you will get entire objects of data which you can map properly to your graph. I will use the same data as before, but instead of just using an array of numbers, I will create some objects. So let's just have a state of data. and the function is basically mapping all the data and just creating like an object and with IDs and values. Basically, like if you are using like a big object, if you have a array of hundreds of or thousands of objects, you probably don't want to use a state, React state to hold it. But here I can do it because I just have a small array of objects. Okay, so I have my data here, so I can map through that data with just like basic React mapping or just basic data mapping. Div you will almost always see in D3. It's so common. I got used to it so much that I'm using it in React now. Okay, so now I'll just create a bar component that I will use here, and then I will just push data to it. It's highlighting it because it does just, there's no such thing as bar, but I will create one here. Normally I would create another file for it, probably on the same level, or I would just generate new component here in NX. But I prefer for the purpose of this video, I prefer to have it all here because it's just much more clear what comes where. Bar equals, and we're gonna push data. We're gonna use data and X and Y coordinates and height. So height we obviously have from here. So from size, height equals. For X and Y, I will use same functions as in previous example. Because I'm using object, so I have my X, so it's at XAxis. We've got everything that we need in that bar chart. I will return group. So each bar will be a group itself. So we have a group within a group. Transform, translate. We'll just pass the data.id. So we are transforming those bars by values that will be generated by our X and Y scale functions. So again, like in my feature bar, we had a group, and then within that group we had a rectangle. So we'll just use the same element here. We'll just create rect. So it's going to take a width from that X bandwidth like before, and then height will be from we pass that height value from the top, from the bottom. The height calculated by for fill we are using this color function. Yeah, it doesn't like the fact that we don't have size, so I'll just give it like a if statement. I'll just check whether the size exists, and like then you can create this XY axis. And yeah, we obviously have to check whether the ref is there, because otherwise it's empty. If the wrapper ref exists, then measure it. Obviously, otherwise it's null. When it's null, it can't run this function. Okay, so currently I have my graph. At least the bars are here. I want to add the text above the bars with the value itself. So it looks like before. Within that rectangle, I will create a text element that will have that value. But I could just write text, but I want to style this text, so I prefer to do it with StyledComponents. And here, just like previously with style the SVG, this time I will use text, and I want it to be white. I think we gave it 22 pixels before. I will give it this value text anchor, so it's going to anchor it within the middle. It's easier to position it that way. So we have our text, and within this style text, I want to show the value. So it's data.value. Yeah, the text is not where we want it to be. So again, we are using this X bandwidth function to just move it on the screen. Yeah, and just, you know, X bandwidth by 2 means that it's just going to move that way to the middle of the element. And the text usually has a couple of pixels, so let's just subtract maybe 12 pixels again, and here it's going to move 4 pixels above the bar. So let's see if we have it. No, did I give it like a color? So you've got rectangle. Yeah, I think that's a mistake here. I mean, it shouldn't be inside of a rectangle, it should be inside of the group. So let's just remove that line. So we have our rect, come on. So we have rectangle, it's on the same level as the text, but text is sort of moved slightly above it. So we should have it now. Okay, I think we have the text here. So yeah, it's black because I used CSS property called color instead of the SVG property called fill. So that's easy to fix, luckily. Fill. I think I moved it slightly too far to the left. Let's subtract 5. We have our values above the chart, which is nice. Within my main SVG component, I will have a X and Y axis. I will pass the X axis function and the size, the height of the element. I will need height within it. So let's just set up this X axis component, not to confuse with this variable const. So let's pass, what did we pass before? We passed scale and height to that component, and let's return just empty div here. So again, I'm going to use a ref. Each axis is within a group, and then it has some color and some transform values. Let's just use StyledComponents. So let's just give it some style, styled axis, and it will have a color of white within that element. So the text within that element will have actually color property. So we've got our styled axis. I will connect it to my ref, so I can just give it like a so we have our axis ref. I will transform it by our left height minus. And one more thing I have to do, I will have to I will use useEffect, and here I'm referring to my ref, which I passed here, and I'm calling this axis bottom scale function, and I'm passing the scale to it. So I have to, I'm calling it here within useEffect, and it's going to update every time the component is updated. So we've got we should have our x-axis now. So it's below, and here we are showing the value. Now the y-axis will be very similar. Okay, so just do the same again. Almost. I don't need height this time, because we use the entire width of the element, and I can change this function to one that we used before, which is axis bottom, and I will pass the scale, the x scale, y scale to it, and here slightly different dimensions. It's going to go through entire SVG with some transform, so we're gonna move it by from a little bit from left and a little bit from the top. Okay, so let's just call YAxis, and we don't need height here. Let's update it. Oh, it's above. Why? Oh, okay, I think I know why. Did we just, okay, we are passing correct function here. I think this is correct. Scale linear. And are we using the same? Oh yeah, I'm using incorrect function. For the x-axis we used axis left. Obviously I used the wrong one. Yeah, so we have our graph. I forgot about the titles. I will just give it like a styled text. So I'm using this styled text from StyledComponents, and then I'll transform it by whatever the value I used before. So let's just give it transform as well again. And I think I was saying that it's a bar chart, some numbers with a size. Okay, obviously it's a size width by 2 minus 20, I don't know, 50. And let's just give it like a dimension stop. Okay, I think it's gonna move it by like 60 pixels. It's not going to be exactly as we had it before, but it's going to be quite close. Yeah, let's see my text. Okay, so I have my text at the top. As you see, like it looks a bit more like a React component with some sub components, with some reusable styling for the text. I'm referring to X and Y lines as a separate components. I created special components for the bar, and I'm using a group, and I'm mapping my data here. And that's the final effect. I hope you like it, and thanks for watching. If this is super easy for you, if you're like some sort of a React master, feel free to apply for some. We've got lots of front-end development vacancies in Stepwise, so just check out our website, which will be in the comment of this video. But if you learned something, I hope you liked it. I hope you will click the like button or subscribe to the channel. All of this code will be available on GitHub. Just check out the link in the description. And I hope to see you in next video. Thank you.